Hospitality technology isn't just for the big pub players. Family-owned tech provider Zonal has worked with operators big and small for more than 40 years to help improve customer experiences and boost the bottom line. Zonal is a trusted BII partner, and we are delighted to be working with them on this new podcast series, highlighting some of the best licensees in the business. For more information about what Zonal's technology can do for your pub, please do visit their website. Welcome to another edition of our podcast, speaking to fantastic pioneering pub people in association with Zonal. I'm delighted to be joined today by Cassie Davison, who is the licensee at the Gate Hangs Well at Syston, which is an Everard's tenancy. Good morning, Cassie.
Hey, nice to see
you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Yes.
Fantastic. So Cassie is a BII member and is also an ambassador for us, having been made one at our recent summer event. She does an awful lot for the trade as well as for her own pub and for the BII. So delighted to be able to speak to her today. So Cassie, for those who don't know you, and there will be some, could you give us a bit of an intro to your pub and how long you've been there?
Okay, so the Gate Hangs Well, as you said, is an Everard's tenancy, so Leicestershire based. We are, almost literally 20 minutes from Leicester, 20 minutes from Loughborough, 20 minutes from Melton Mowbray, and 20 minutes from Nottingham. So we're properly centre of the East Midlands. The pub is just outside of Syston, so probably about walking distance, half a mile to a mile. But there's no other residential around us. So we're actually a country pub, really. What was a main trunk road. We're here. The reason why the pub's even here is it was an old toll road. So the Gate Hangs Well would have been the gate of the toll. But also we have the river running by, which was navigable once upon a time. So at one point in history, this would have been a very, very busy pub. And now it's a little isolated pub in the countryside, but absolutely lovely. In winter, we have cosy fires on indoors. It's a nice, cozy little space. But in summer, the pub really comes into its own because we've got this huge, massive pub garden, which actually, when we moved in, we've even extended further. So now we've got a riverside garden as well. And then also an adjacent field, which we use for events and weddings and corporate events and food festivals and that kind of stuff. So there's a massive amount of potential here at this pub. I took the pub on I'm one of those that took it on during COVID. I took it on in April 2021. And so we're only just over in our first year of operating here, but we've got big plans for the pub, bringing it back to its former glory, really.
And who better to do that than you, with all of your years of experience in the trade? So obviously you say you're quite a rural pub, but what's the mix for you of kind of destination visitors versus locals and regulars? What's the feel for the people who visit you?
Ooh, it's really difficult because, I say, we're only a year in, so actually we've got and when we opened, just as COVID reopening thing. So actually, we're almost it almost felt like a new startup. That actually we were starting from absolute scratch because the pub had been closed, not just because of COVID. It had actually been closed as well. So we do have a lot of regulars. We have some sort of people local to the Syston area that will come to us. And then we are building our regular base. That is, for anyone in business, that is your fundamentally your objective, isn't it? To be good enough that people want to come back and people want to tell other people about you. So we inevitably, because there's no housing near us, we are inevitably destinational. So people have to make a choice to come here. And I think traditionally that's therefore to be destinational, you would, make your food offer the thing. I'm quite determined that we remain a pub. So we are absolutely a pub that serves good food. So the food element is almost to the side of stuff. People do come to eat, but fundamentally they're coming to the pub. So yeah, I guess inevitably, because of our location, we have to be destinational. But we have a solid bank of regulars.
Fantastic. And in terms of the food that you serve, I know from following you on social media that you've had quite a few stints in the kitchen yourself over the last year, filling in for the inevitable chef shortages and those sorts of things. So what sort of a menu are you producing at the moment, and has that changed over the last year?
It hasn't changed over the last year because there's just absolutely not enough hours in the day to do all the things we're trying to do. But when we opened, as you say, I've put 25 years in the industry, all front of house, all managing business, and absolutely determined that the one thing I was never going to do was set foot in that kitchen. Other than obviously, I have done my share of pot washing and prepping. But when we opened, we had no chefs at all. Even the relief chefs weren't reliable because there weren't enough chefs to go around. And so it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that the only solution here was for me to do it. So I stepped into the kitchen with no menu, literally no equipment, because our equipment all got condemned when we came to turn it on.
Wow.
I've never, I say I've been in the kitchen and done, the odd little bits at the side of chefs and sort of helping chefs out, but never actually done it. So I'd never used a fryer, I'd never used a griddle. And I was on my own, there was no one else in there. So I was trying to design the menu. But equally, on the other hand, in the longer term, that's great for my business because it means we've designed a menu that, one I can do, which is great, but also that has that simplicity in mind from a kitchen point of view. So the systems are quite straightforward. But in any case, going back to, what we were saying about the purpose of our pub is to be our pub rather than a restaurant. Therefore, our food is burgers, it's butcher made local pies, it is homemade lasagna, homemade chili con carne. Summer we've got a great range of healthy salads, and it's sort of ticking the box. And pizza's great. We've got this amazing pizza supplier as well, which is fantastic. But the whole idea is that rather than competing with the restaurant market, we're competing with the takeaway market, that we're competing with people coming home and going, oh, I can't bother to cook, let's get a takeaway. And they go, no, let's go to the pub. So actually we're sticking at our prices at that kind of level. So it's lower than you would have as a restaurant, for example, but it's affordable. So I say affordable, everything's difficult at the minute, but in principle, it's affordable that you are going to the pub and going, oh, come on, it's dinner time, we should eat.
Yeah.
And actually, therefore, you're picking up the menu and going, oh, it's actually got food that I want to eat as well. It's not occasion food, it's, everyday food. Although, obviously, we're brilliant for occasions as well. We can do that.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you've got a very strong idea of what you want the pub to be, and like you said, it's a pub first and a pub that serves food rather than a restaurant, which is great because there's so many different reasons that people visit pubs, and sometimes you want a sort of more a gastropub and you're going for a meal specifically. Other times you want to go, like you say, after work and just have a bite to eat. And people will use pubs for different reasons at different times. We all love a full range of pubs, so it's great that you've got a real plan and you know what you're doing with it. And in terms of your pub's USP, do you think there's one thing that you would say is why people come to you? Would you say it's the location? Would you say it's your team? Would you say it's the atmosphere? Is there anything you'd say is the one thing?
Oh, you're really testing me. Because ultimately the answer is our brand, isn't it? And our brand is lots of different things and lots of different elements, but and the brand encapsulates all the USPs. So I was saying, like winter, it's our cozy fires. It's the fact that no matter how busy we are, which sometimes in winter it's a bit but we've still got our 3 fires on, so people know they're coming to sit by an open fire. And in the summer, it is our huge garden, and it's the quiet and peacefulness of the riverside, but also the vibrant, busy pub garden that's going on, and across. I've lived in Leicestershire all my life, and I can't think of very many pub gardens as big as ours. With the sort of feel that ours has. But but all of those things were here before I was. So none of those things are necessarily the reason why people come to this pub. The reason why people come to any place and keep coming back is the feel, the ambience, the things that you're creating, which comes from both, well, in this case from me, but more importantly my staff, because I'm not necessarily there every moment of the day, but my staff are. So it's not customer service, it's customer care. It genuinely is, that you actually care about the people that are walking through the door, and that actually we are being that place where people feel relaxed enough that they're not thinking about us particularly, that actually they're just coming in and going, yeah, I've come in with my partner, I've come in with my friends, I've come in with my family, whatever, and we're just having our time here, and all of that's happening without me having to think too hard about it. And I think that's, getting that combination right, and I'm not pretending that's easy, because it definitely isn't, but getting that right is the reason why your customers keep coming back.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with the not customer service, customer care. I really like that element of it, because, customer service is what you get when you go and buy a phone, or when you go and, put your weekly shopping in, someone being nice to you at a till, and someone finding something for you on a supermarket shelf. That's customer service. But like you say, everybody comes to the pub to be cared for, you don't go to the pub for a stressful experience. You go for a lovely, peaceful experience, or a celebratory experience. That's quite difficult though for staff to have to navigate all of those different reasons that people come to you, and different people will come at different times and want something different from you. So how do you train your staff to be that kind of friendly but background, sort of ever-present, caring staff member?
Oh my God, it's so hard. It is so hard because I remember, when I first started in this industry, like too long ago, 25 years ago, whatever, and I remember working somewhere and being trained in customer service and going, oh my goodness, this is a revelation. We need to smile at people, this is amazing, this is going to transform our experiences in these places. And then just over the years just going, why is this still not working? Why am I going places and people are still not being even polite?
Yeah.
And then when you're training your own staff, and you see almost like how people are so jaded. They have an understanding of customer service. They know what it means. They've learned their customer service standards. They know that they need to check back on food. They know the basics of saying hello to people and saying goodbye to people, but it doesn't have any meaning particularly. And so therefore, because they're not engaged with it, other than it being just part of their checklist of things that they need to do, therefore it doesn't necessarily translate. So with my training, what I try to do, and I'm literally doing this right now with my staff, it's not a good time to try and train your staff on this sort of stuff right at the height of season when everyone's at their busiest, but we're squeezing it in, we're doing it because it's important. But what we're doing is spending a long time talking about why we do what we do, why we love what we do, because loads of people are in the industry and love it, absolutely love it, and they're not necessarily able to articulate why, and they can give the standard reasons, but they can't necessarily get to that why do you love it. And if I can get my staff to understand why I love it, and I'm genuinely ridiculously passionate about it, and I find myself just going up on one, I might just do it, but if you can get across that as for them to engage with why they love it, because it will be slightly different for them, but fundamentally it'll come down to being nice to other people and liking other human beings and wanting other people to have a nice time. Those are fundamentally why people love this industry. I mean, there's lots of other great things about it as well, but fundamentally, whether you're introvert or extrovert, you still want people to have a nice time, basically, and to walk away happy and to have had influence on that in one way or another. And so, yeah, it's really hard because in order for me to do that, I have to be quite frank about what I love about stuff. And actually, we spend a lot of time on that. And I say to them, even in their interview state, when I do interviews, they all come and they go, "You didn't really get to let us talk." I go, "Yeah, there's no point in letting you talk. I need you to understand what I love and what I like and what I want, so that to know whether or not you want to be part of it and whether you share those values." So all of that starts from the interview stage, but it's hard. It's hard getting that across.
That's very interesting, because I hear quite a lot about interview techniques and all of those things. And so a lot of the time, the thing is, you must talk very little. You must let that other person talk. But I absolutely agree with you that if they don't know what your passion is, if they don't know what you expect of them, if they are not 100% on board, no point in going past that first interview, is there? You're wasting your time. You're pushing water uphill. And so if they have that expectation of what you are looking for from them, much quicker process. And I actually think it's a good time to do it at the height of the season, because they've got way more time to practice it and no time to think about it. So they just need to get on with it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So I know that you've got quite a strong female team at your pub, again, from following you on social media. Is that something that you've deliberately set out to achieve, to kind of redress the balance, or is it something that's sort of happened quite organically?
I'd love to tell you I went our way to do it, and maybe in some point I did, but actually when I'm just going back to what I was just talking about, and you're talking about why I'm doing what I'm doing, I've spent 25 years in the industry, and I know how really, really hard it is. And I've got 4 kids, and
wow.
I know, and 2 of them are autistic as well. So my work-life balance has been absolutely chaos and almost impossible. And I've seen far too many women in the industry not being able to keep up with the expectations that that you have to be working 60-hour weeks, and you have to be at someone's beck and call all the time, and it's long, it's unsociable hours, it's always weekends. And actually the reality is that if you've got kids, that's nearly impossible without completely sacrificing your family life completely. And so when I've designed this pub for myself, just thinking about me, nobody else, it has all been about trying to redress those balances, and actually how am I going to design this so actually it works for me and my family life. So we'll start from picking the right people, and then developing work. As I get to know them, I find out what their strengths are, and then we find out what it is that they really want out of life. And then we tailor jobs that work for them. Now, I'm absolutely privileged in that basically I'm a single site operator and I live on site, and I can do that. So I'm not claiming that is possible for the bigger chains to do that, or particularly multi-site. But it's one of the reasons why I never want to be multi-site ever again. I've been multi-site, don't want to do it, because I like this model. I like the way we can work so flexibly, and we can work with individuals, and we can make it right for individuals. But going back to being a female team, that attracts a female member of staff, because so I've got my most senior managers, so now my head chef and my manager are both exceptionally well qualified. They've worked in exceptionally great places, and they could earn huge amounts of money if they, were to go back to working in the chains, or working, down in London or whatever, or wherever around the country they have been. But both of them have young kids. Both of them are coming down the other side of that. They've achieved all of that, and now they're actually saying, what do we want from our lives? And they love the industry, but their choice is finding a boss like me or leaving the industry. And unfortunately, most people leave the industry. And I think that is one of the contributing factors to the staffing crisis we have right now, because I think in COVID, people had those conversations with themselves and with their families and said, this isn't going to work. I can't keep that up.
I think it's really interesting what you say about people reassessing their life choices, and and I know lots of people, pretty much everybody has done that in COVID, but it's interesting about what is success. What does it look like? Is it constantly climbing the greasy pole? Is it you've got to go for a role that's more money, and you've got to go for a role that's more prestigious, and you've got to keep climbing that? Or do you get to a point where you go, do you know what, actually I'm happy where I am, I want to do a great job, I want to not work 60 hours a week, and I want to just make people happy? And again, it goes back to what you say about hospitality is generally hospitality people want to make people happy. I thought it was really interesting what you said about introverts versus extroverts as well, because I think a lot of people assume that the only role is for some sort of bubbly, extraordinary, happy person to be in hospitality. And I think that probably is you. But I don't.
No, this is the point. The reason why I bring that up is because I'm a ridiculous introvert. Now I know that I say to people, like, everyone goes, oh, I say I'm really shy, and they go, no, you're not, and I go, no, I can perfectly happily talk to you, as we are now, talk to you about things that I'm massively interested in and really passionate about, and I don't have any problem with that at all. But I'm not a natural behind in this industry in terms of that. I'm very happy sitting, when I started, I loved this job, because being shy, you were behind the bar and you played a role. And It was really good to do that, and you learned all your social skills, and you were able to have you'd had your conversations and stuff. But no, I'm naturally very, very introvert. And actually, if I look around sometimes, you can see it in some of my members of staff, how they don't find those conversations, just chatting away and being bubbly and woo, here I am, very easy. Well, I definitely don't. So actually, as I say, I didn't want to be in the kitchen, but once I got in the kitchen, I was going, oh, I like this. Nobody talks to me.
I could put my radio on, I could just have my own space. So in terms of how you organise yourself and how you use the great advances in technology that we've had to help you. Obviously, it's lovely to have great staff. It's nice to have all of that, what some people would call the sort of fluffier stuff. But I don't. I think it's massively important. I think it's the most important thing. If you haven't got that right, then you haven't got anything. But how do you use tech to organise yourself and to help your staff on a daily basis?
Well, tech is obviously becoming more and more important. And I say I've been doing this job for far too long, and I've spent far too long going, why can't technology do this bit for me? And then eventually it comes along.
I think that I get time and time again, we hear that, technology is one of those things that, yes, it's an expense, and yes, it might be something that you think to yourself, oh, can I afford to? But I think certainly from all the people that I've spoken to, you can't afford not to have it in your business. And you can pick out trends on, look how much gin we sold on that day. It's clearly the temperature is X. This is the number of gin and tonics we sell. If it's predicted for a heat wave, we need to get more gin and tonics. We need to get more ice on the go as well, I would imagine. Yeah. But yeah, fantastic. Let's talk a little bit briefly about some of the work that you've done for us at the BII. So we obviously you've been a BII member for a while, and we came across you. I think actually it was the Licensed Trade Charity who first spoke to me about you, because you have not only run your own pub and been multi-award winning in various venues over the years, but you've also over lockdown started a kind of an online forum called Kith and Kin.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about that and why you did it, and what prompted you to go down that road?
Okay, so this is going. So we're talking about technology again. That what we're doing now, this online stuff. Before COVID, people were very reluctant to do it. If you were going to meet with someone, you met with somebody. You never did it online. But COVID happened and everything went online, and it suddenly opened up this whole host of opportunities for people. And what I'd realised, having done this for so long, previously to being an Everard's tenant, I've always been a free house. So I spent 20 years with my own operations, completely isolated. And although I was very well networked within business in general, within the industry, I looked around and thought, hold on a second, who do I know? Who can I speak to? Who can I ask questions of? Because the only people were local operators. and potentially even on the same street as you, and sharing information was not necessarily something that you wanted to do not me. I'm all for sharing information, but going to say, how was your week to your nearest competitor, and how are you finding this, and what do you think about this? Oh, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? You just couldn't share that with your competitor directly. So, I spent well over 20 years just being completely isolated, trying to pick up, what I could, but from other businesses, and then, reusing that information. So those two things together, once you're able to be online like this, you could open it up to the whole country. So the whole purpose of Kith and Kin was to bring operators in particular together to be able to have quite frank conversations about, what works, what doesn't work. And within COVID, it was, how are we going to cope with this? What are we coping with? What is going on? And I mean, there was one point where we had people from Scotland and Wales and England, and then somebody that was on the border of Wales and England, and it was like having these conversations about how the rules were changing all the time and how everyone was coping with it and how, what we were going to do about it. So a lot of the conversations were based around, look, okay, what's happening this week in COVID? But actually, it then ventures into things like, how do you, what are the options of marketing a pub? How do you market on a shoestring? How do you manage staff? How do you recruit staff? And those sort of genuine sharing, and menu development and things, genuine sharing of information. Because when I'm in Leicester, if I'm talking to someone in Wales about what they're doing, there's absolutely no competition. There's no, we're not in the same pool. So we can share those ideas and we can build those relationships. And then, so very quickly, there was a support network that was sort of building around Kith and Kin. Now, inevitably, you had people from not just operators involved, but the whole purpose of Kith and Kin was that anyone was allowed to be involved. Anyone with any interest at all in the industry was allowed to be involved, because actually having conversations about the industry to others is valuable as well. But it's this whole thing about this industry being such an amazing, diverse and exciting industry, that actually we should be sharing the insights in that with others, so that they can really appreciate it and understand it. And so it was open to lots of different people, and that meant that you had a really lovely, diverse conversation.
Well, which means that you're going to get ideas that you never thought of, because you're thinking in your little zone over here and somebody else is thinking in their little zone over there. And it could be something so simple, but you never think of it, do you? Because you're sort of too busy in the day to day. So great opportunity to share and collaborate. And I mean, definitely we saw that was something that happened massively in COVID, particularly when we were all in crisis mode. Literally the whole industry came together to save it, which was fantastic from our perspective. But I do think hospitality people generally are very collaborative, very open, very sharing. And like you say, even if there's a pub down the road, like sharing ideas is not going to mean that people go, I'm not going to that pub now because this pub's doing exactly the same. There's room for everybody, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think I've always had that model in mind, that working with other people locally, if you can build even just your local reputation. So if then this happened with because I used to have my last venue was in the Cultural Quarter in Leicester. So we had all the businesses in that area come together as part of the Cultural Quarter Association, and actually we built the reputation of that area. So therefore the whole area became a destination. And I could go on for hours about all the things we did and all the amazing great things that the collaborations created. But fundamentally what it did was bring more people to the area, create a destination, an area, and then within that we all benefit, and that's fantastic.
Absolutely. One of the things that slightly less positive at the moment potentially is the rising costs that everybody's having to face, particularly around energy at the moment. So how are you managing that? Are you just kind of taking it on the chin and going, right, well, we just need to trade out of our boots and make sure we take as much money as possible? Are you cutting back on things where you can? Is it a mixture of both? How are you approaching it?
do you know what? It's absolutely impossible situation. I say I've been doing this for so long, and all the time, you know, anyone in business knows, you know, one of the fundamental successes in business is you have to manage your costs. And so you turn around and go, but I've already cut all my costs. You know, I cut my costs. I'm always cutting my costs. I'm always not spending too much. I'm always being careful, but everything is going up, and you know, for everything to go up all together is really, really tough. And then at the same time have to worry about the sensitivity. You know, previously you might have costs go up, but you'd one way or another pass that cost on to your customer. That is the model. That's how it works. But when you're talking about, you know, the current situation, that's not so easy to do, because we're already in a situation where particularly pubs, you know, and other hospitality businesses are going to be feeling the loss of their customers. You know, their customers are going to be spending less. Full stop. That is absolutely fact. They already are. They were after COVID. They definitely are now. So we've got less customers spending less money at the same time our costs are going up. That is a horrible situation. And apart from, we can turn more things off, but all you do, every cost you cut, you are doing more harm to that customer experience. So you have, every time you cut anything. So if I turn off my fridges for half an hour, then, or whatever, then I'm going to have slightly warm drinks. You know, that's affecting my customer experience. So everything has to be so. And my frustration is, if it was that easy, we'd have all done it already, because we'd have cut our costs. We've cut our costs to where we thought was the lowest we could go. And for every year I've ever been doing this, it's always been, prices are going up. We need to, you know. It's tough. So my attitude at the minute is, I've been doing this long enough, seen crises come and go, and more often we're in crisis than we're not. We just have to trade our way out a bit one way or another. And I think that is awfully bleak for some operators.
I agree. You've hit the nail on the head in that you can only cut costs so far. You can only stimulate people to spend money so far when they come in. I think the key to your success, and hopefully continued success, is the diversification that you have put into, particularly the garden. I know you've put a big sort of covered marquee area up as well, which looks fantastic. And you pretty much did that yourself, according to social media. Single-handed. Nobody stops Cassie.
Yeah, I had it, and then it was in a location I didn't like, so I took it down in high winds and never put it back up again. And then I was sitting looking at it, going, I don't know how to do this. And I went on social media and said, can anyone help me put up this stretch tent? And got very little response. I thought, right, okay, I'm just going to do it. So it did take me quite a long time, and it is quite heavy and quite difficult. But I did it. I don't want to ever move it again. That's not.
You've got the ideal location now.
It's now stuck. I can't move it.
But it looks great, and I guess it's giving you just another reason for people to come, because when it's hot they can shelter underneath it. When it's rainy they can shelter underneath it. You've just given yourself another opportunity to keep people in the business and keep bringing them back.
Yeah, but I think regardless of what's going on in the world around us, I think that is what all pub businesses have to do all the time anyway. It's always because nothing stands still. You can't say I've got a perfect business and this is how it is and nothing's ever going to change. You've always got to be adapting, because although you don't necessarily see it happen, society is constantly changing. What fashions, what trends, what people want, what people value. And I think one of those things about COVID happening was we had that 2-year gap where instead of that happening sort of slowly, it felt very sudden, that actually we've come back to, regardless of what's going on with prices now, but you did come back to higher prices instantly because the world had moved on, because and that's 2 years of what would have been incremental price increases just was bang. And but it's not just that, it is what people value and how people feel about the world and what they want to do in their spare time. It is constantly changing. Changing, and it's not just because my businesses have always changed. So my first place was perfect for someone. I was 23 when I opened my first place, so it was perfect for a 23-year-old. 25 years later, this place is perfect for somebody, you know, in their 40s, and that's it. But they're different, and it's not just that they're different because, in some ways, they are just different because I'm older and I've changed my values, but also, you know, society's changed as well, and so you constantly have to be doing that regardless of what's going on outside. So although there is a lot of talk about the crisis and all of the diversification that's required at the minute, you're going to have to do it anyway in this industry, which is, as much as I don't like a crisis and it doesn't feel very uncomfortable, it's not very nice, in hindsight it is one of the things, you know, a lot of us like about the industry, that it's always a puzzle and a problem that needs to be solved.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Also, you know, how brilliant that you had your first venue at the age of 23. And I know that's a testament to you and your talent, but also to our industry and the opportunities that it gives to people from all sorts of backgrounds, from all sorts of skill sets. No other industry that I can think of would give you the autonomy and the power and the opportunity at such a young age to be in charge of something as important as a whole pub.
Yeah, I know, but I do look back and go, oh my goodness, I didn't know. What was I doing?
What were they doing giving me the keys to that at 23? I suppose then a final question for me based on that. What advice could you give to anybody starting a career in hospitality at the moment?
Well, to know why you love it and work out why you love it, because everyone will tell you that this isn't a worthwhile job, and they will. That's the underlying thing, that you know, you have a bar job just while you're thinking about what you're doing, or you do that just because you've not actually found what it is you're looking for yet. And I feel that with, you know, not necessarily at this venue, but when I had my previous venue, which was, say, city centre and full of students, as my staff were students, not my customers, but, you know, they're all sort of there as a stopgap. But so many of them are still there, and you can still feel from some of them, you know, this idea that, oh, you know, I've not quite, you know, I don't really know what I want to do in my life. And you go, but you're doing it. You love it. So why are you looking for something else? Why are you trying to find this office job that you know you're going to hate? You know, actually, all the things that you want out of life, you can get out of this job. And as I say, you know, I get so much out of it. You know, I do like other people to be happy. I like to be contributing to other people's lives, whether it's just, you know, that space where people are coming to have their, you know, their conversations with their friends that are required, and we're just that space where they do that, or where they are meeting new people and building relationships, whatever, and we're just in the background. You know, we're not actually, they're not naive. They're never going to go away and think, oh my goodness, so, you know, that pub really contributes to my life. Although sometimes they do, but in general they don't. But you are making a difference to people. But then on top of that, there is the, you know, the multitasking, the chaos, the problem solving, you know, all of that comes with it, that, you know, so many people get a lot out of as well. So you can get the whole thing here. Everything you want out of, you can get from this industry. Because, and this is another thing I said, saying to someone recently, that you find a job in this industry and you find out what you're good at, and then you will find somebody who will create a role for you that will be about what you are good at, and that's the secret of having a job that you love, I think.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Cassie.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Lovely to chat with you.
And finally, a huge thank you to our trusted partner Zonal for their support with this podcast series. They work with thousands of independent hospitality operators across the UK and have a 3-in-1 rental package designed especially for independent pubs. For more information about what Zonal's technology can do for your pub, please do visit their website.